Continuing on with playlist and with automation from commands, we've done loop control. Now we're going to do selections. And the reason we want to do that is that if I can control looping from, say, a MIDI device with knobs, I'll be able to do more in real time while I'm performing than if I'm trying to do this with the mouse and control other things. Because once you start clicking the mouse, that's everything. Um, and doesn't free up and let you move around from parameter to parameter. So first thing we need to do is unlock the patch. Think about how, or learn how Playlist thinks about time. Different audio objects in Max think about time in different ways, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. It lets you control your sound in different ways. Some objects like SF Play think about time in milliseconds. Other objects like Playlist are thinking about time in terms of a percentage or relative time where you are in the sound file, like half or all the way or at the beginning. So unlocked, I'm going to select Playlist, hit my inspector again. Actually, I want to go down into my reference. Just below the inspector, it looks like a book icon. That reference object brings up all the messages that Playlist accepts. And if I were to go through and find selection, select playback endpoints for a clip, I can then look and see a little description of that message. So it sends playback endpoints for a clip using a normalized range. 0.0 is the beginning, 1.0 is the end. And so that means no matter what the length of the sound file, 0.5 is the middle. You don't have to think about time. You don't have to worry about the time when you're getting them. And so argument, it's selection as your message, then a clip number, and then you have a start point for the clip and end point for the clip. And another little cool thing you can do, so I'm over here in reference, I'm going to drag this message into my patch window, and it creates a message object with the name selection. I can now put in my clip number, and then I can type in values to loop. So let's say 0.0 for start and 0.5 for midway through. And I'll create another one and make this one be loop everything. So let's go to 1.0. Then I can copy this loop control because it's going to send these messages to the receive object, and I don't need to patch all the way over to playlist. Lock my patch, so that's halfway through, and it goes all the way. So now, pretty cool that I can do this because now I can do some variability. Sorry there. So let's unlock. Let's get rid of the second message, and let's do, again, some editing. So anything that's a value can be replaced by a $sign. $1. Get rid of everything else there. And $2, because I need two things to come in. I'm going to need a list of two objects. So I can hook up or do floating point number boxes. I'm typing an F to get the floating point number box. It's different from an integer. It has parts past the whole number. But I need to put them in, I need to create a list from these two numbers. And to create a list, I've got two objects. I've got an object called pack, and I can tell it what to put in the list, floating point numbers. But pack will only send out its list if I change what goes in the left inlet. And you see it highlights red when I put the patch cord in. That's the hot inlet. And Max objects typically will store information in the right inlet and execute their function and send information out when it gets data in the left inlet. So I could set up with pack 0.5, and nothing will happen until I change and make this, let's say 0.25, and hit enter. And now my loop updates. So anything over here doesn't change the loop. So that's a little bit funky, not quite what I want to do. Luckily, there's another object I can use. Instead of with pack with a C, POC drop the C. So just PAK. Same arguments. What are the list elements? And you have to tell it, you can tell it default values to start, but you have to tell it what type of value. So I'm looking for 2 floating point numbers as my list. Now, anything I change over here, like say 0, always sends out the left, but now over here, the right gets sent out. And so the reason it sent out the whole selection at the beginning is that I had not changed this right value yet, and the initial argument was 1, so when I changed this number, after initializing this object, it sent out the whole loop. Nothing had come in. Now, once I have number boxes, I can control these remotely, and I'm going to bring these in, move everything down a little bit, and use some control in messages. Control in, bring in MIDI continuous controller values. I'm going to make a blank box because I want to figure out what controller's what. If I don't specify a controller to listen to, it's listening to everything, but it can tell me what controller is actually being used. So hook up an integer number box with an I, and if I move my mod wheel, that's controller 1. Let's hook up another I so you can see the whole thing. Mod wheel's controller 1, and there's my values changing. I also have knob 12, controller 12. One below it on my keyboard is 16. I have 2 banks of 4. And I'm going to use 12 and 16 to control loop points. So CTLN 12. And CTLN 16. Now it's listening to these two. I need to scale because it's going to send me 0 to 127 information or values. And they're only listening to those controllers. Now I need this in the range of 0 to 1 in a floating point, and this is going to happen a lot when I'm working with digital audio. I need to scale my MIDI values to digital audio values, control values. So there is an object called scale. It's looking for the input. The input's going to go from 0 to 127. Now it's looking for the output, and that's going to go from 0 to 1. And I have to put the decimal points, or else it's going to be 0 to 1 as integers, and there's nothing in between. So hook this up for the first one, and go through, and now I can adjust my starting point, and it updates as I'm moving my MIDI dial. I can move this over, copy this scale, hook it up to the second controller into this value, and now I have 2 controllers that let me move around, and it's pretty easy to start playing. And make these loop points change while it's playing back very easily. 2 hands for the start and the stop, can move things around independently, and I have loop control. Now I can make this affect everything with the same sorts of copying I was doing up above here with with my loops on and off, I just need to make 4 of these, so 3 more. Select what I have, go in, and I'll put them, close my reference, and expand out my window. Make a third, and make a fourth. Now I have to change sets of things for each one. Selection points got to go to clip 2, 3, and 4. And then these controllers are each going to increment 1. So control in 12 becomes 13. 16 becomes 17. 12, 13, 14. 17, 18. And this is going to become, over 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16, 17, 18, 19. Then I'm going to hook these up to the send loop control. And I'm going to do a little cleanup. I'm going to option drag over these 4 patch cords, and under arrange, auto align, we'll do objects or patch cords, and it sort of overlaps them. See each patch cord when I roll over it. Kind of saves a little visual clutter out of the way. But now all my loops, if I can do 2, are changeable. With my MIDI controller, and I can play some stuff. Change clips. Ball's going through. And stop the whole thing. So a little bit longer, but now I have some MIDI control of my loop points. I have a kind of live looper that's manipulable. And next thing I'm going to do in the next video is talk about how to do speed control. And so that's it for this one.